Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Kevin from Tales of Black Badge. Kevin, how are you?
I am doing excellent. Thank you, Bailey. Great to be here.
Yeah, very excited. This is I started this podcast doing more having guest friends, people my age and stuff. Very much found through social media, TikTok stuff, and I kind of finished everybody on my list, and so I shot my shot, and I got Kevin on here, and I'm very grateful to have like the OG Wynonna Earp podcaster here. Like, were you the first Winona podcast? Like, was Tales of Black Badge the first one that you know of?
Yes, first one that I was aware of. A couple others started up not long after, but we launched actually in late March, a couple of weeks before the show even premiered. So we were off the ground fast.
Yeah, that's insane. If for people who don't know, Tales of Black Badge started when Winona started, the very beginning, and it's been Kevin and Bonnie the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I love how you guys do your podcast. I watch the show and I think my own things, and then I listen to your guys' podcast. I'm like, I did not think about it like that at all. You guys, like, the insight that I didn't even think about was like, holy cow, it's amazing.
Well, that's the great thing about the Earpers, though, and the Earp fandom. It's the same way for me. Even after we talk about some topics, I love to listen to other podcasts or vidcasts or read through recaps, because so many people see other things. It just makes it so much richer every time I rewatch an episode.
Yeah, it's amazing. So let's get started. We're going to start off with Wynonna Earp, obviously, because I think that's where our podcast interests mostly lie with. Season 4 was once an incredible season, big kind of present to the Earpers in a way, because we had fought for season 4 for what, like year and a half, 2 years.
I mean, it was 22 months between episodes, between season 3 and season 4. So
that's
we waited quite a long
years,
time.
Yeah,
close to 2.
And so all the things, I think a lot of people got what they asked for this season. And my favorite season so far what did you think of season 4?
Well, yeah, I mean, after what happened with the fight, where we spent several months not even knowing if we get that season 4, certainly Emily and her amazing writing team made sure to have, along with a totally kick-ass story and some wonderful character stuff. We also got so many Earper nods, so many boops and other things, as they call them, to call back to the fandom and the show and everything else. I mean, it was just such a blessing, really. I love to see the discussions of folks trying to pick a favorite season. Everybody's got different bits. Obviously, the most recent one tends to be the one folks pick, and certainly with all the emotional points in there. I certainly get it. But then you start to go back and you do a rewatch, and then you're like, oh, I don't know, I really like this season too, because the question I get so often is, well, what's your favorite episode of Wynonna Earp? And I always have the same answer, which is the last one I watched, because they are all just so good. And you might have ones that you gravitate to on a rewatch, or faves that way, but man, there is just so much good stuff in every one of them. It's just, what did I see last?
Exactly. I think like every season I have like my favorite episodes. I can never like put one before the other, because I like them for different reasons, and they hit home in different spots. And so I'm just like, what are your favorite episodes? Well, they're kind of like 3 of them that are all on the same level of being my favorite. And I think it's incredible that so many people relate to the show in so many different ways, and that's the best part about this fandom, is people come for it for different reasons. And there's so many different, like, the diversity in the fandom in general is insane. And I think finding that through the show is the best part of it. We all have this one thing, and then it kind of just grows from there about what we become friends and family like through the fandom. I couldn't have asked for anything better. Like, I started watching 2018, so like season 3 is when I really started watching it. And I didn't like get into the fandom, not that I wasn't an Earper, but I didn't like really participate on social media until last October. And then once I started doing that, immediate friends, immediate family. I think I have like a core group I talk to like almost every day. And
Yeah, that's the beauty, isn't it? You just doesn't matter when you found the show.
Yeah.
Once you get into this, the social side, be it Twitter or Facebook or wherever, when you find the other Earpers, it's just such an amazing connection so quickly.
Yeah. So with your podcast, I love on Twitter, you always end up giving like little hints about what the episode will be like before, and then everybody goes crazy because we're like, what is this supposed to mean? I remember for for 409, you put like the chicken emoji, and everybody's like, why is there a chicken here? It's so good. But you and Bonnie get the early like release screeners for the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
How far in advance do you watch those?
Well, it's interesting. I've been podcasting myself since 2005, covering genre TV shows, movies, and things. And several years ago, we got a connection with the folks at the Sci-Fi Channel, so they gave us access to screeners for most of their shows, which is great. Helps a lot, certainly with the podcast we do, to be prepared and to help talk up shows. And for many of them, over the course of time, I enjoy many shows. I'm a big fan of a lot of them. And, I'll gobble some up here or there as they put screeners out. For some shows, they put like, most of a season up even before it starts sometimes, or just, some a couple days ahead, whatever. It varies based on the show production schedules. But for Wynonna Earp, what I definitely found is those are often there, several weeks in advance sometimes, based on the season and kind of where they are in the season. But the thing I found, it actually was back in season 2, at the beginning of season 2. So excited when we were coming back. It was almost a year between seasons. And Sci-Fi posted the first 4 episodes of season 2 a couple of weeks before it started. And I was so excited, I got to tell you, I gobbled up all 4 in a weekend. Just couldn't stop. The problem was, while that was very exciting and watching those 4 episodes, I then had over a month with no new content, basically, for me. Plus the fact that as we're recording podcasts and doing our Whiskey and Donuts hangouts right after the airings, I had to be very careful what I said because I knew what was always going to come. And that kind of sucked, very honestly, because I had to, for half a second, stop. I couldn't get into a good discussion about speculation on what was going to happen because I kind of knew. So I realized that was a mistake. So from that point on, I only watched the next episode after we recorded our podcast and done our online hangout, because it took away from the fun of in the moment, certainly the same way with fans, during the course of a week, being able to speculate. And as you know, lots of fans talking up storylines. Being too far ahead just wasn't as much fun. I had to be much quieter to be on the safe side. So blessing and curse, depending upon where you're at. But doing the episode tease tweets, as you started to say there, that took on a life of its own. I think it was season 2 when I started putting out, I'd watch the episode 3 or 4 days ahead of its airing and then put out a tweet a day or 2 ahead of time. No spoilers, just a little bit of teases, as Emily and some of the other people would do. And that kind of took on a life of its own, as you said. A lot of folks like yourself were like, oh, what's the tease coming this week? And what can I glean from it? So all of a sudden then there was a little pressure, like, wow, lots of folks paying attention. I got to be really on the ball with this. And as you pointed out, the one with the chicken kicker, that one I was struggling a little bit with what to put, and then I'll rewatch the episode like once or twice, just with the mindset of, okay, what can I tease without giving away? And just, I saw that scene, I laughed, and then it just occurred to me, oh my God, is there a chicken emoji? If there is, I'm going to use a chicken emoji. So sometimes inspiration hits in the weirdest places.
Oh yeah, it's insane. I remember when talking about like Emily and the cast, like sometimes like to tease things out. I remember that there's like one night where Emily decided to tease all the names for the rest of the episodes.
Oh, the episodes, yes. Mm-hmm.
It was insane because I was talking with my friends and then I had to leave and I went to practice and then I came back and everybody's like freaking out. I'm like, what is going on here? And then they were talking about the names. I was like, oh my gosh, Emily.
Well, and the way they do it too, where they use, song titles. And oftentimes early on it was country songs and other things. And then everybody's scrambling to go look up the lyrics. And then they're looking at the lyrics to determine what's going to happen in the episode. And then seeing that speculation is a whole nother rabbit hole that everybody's going down. So that's why sometimes when folks will ask, why is Wynonna Earp special to you? Why, is it like this? And I say, aside from how amazing the show it is and the people on it, it's the fans and how much we get so into every part of it, from discussing those and talking about their impact in our real lives. Like you said, just going nuts over episode titles.
Yeah. Like, who would think?
Things like that. And the potato licking in the trailer for the, another season, and all of the speculation on that. It's just, everybody embraces it. And it's just very special.
It's quite crazy. The things that Earpers do to like figure things out. Like, I wonder, and everybody like thinks they have an idea of what's gonna happen, and then it's like the exact opposite of what's happening. It's so funny. Like, everybody's like speculating about Eve and everything, and we're just like, she never came back. From what we know of, she has not returned, and everybody's like, where is she? We don't know. We're like, and like, we didn't think Jolene would come back. I thought Jolene was gone. I thought she was gone. And I remember seeing in the trailer, like, somebody in the background of that cabin when it was the shot of Waverly screaming for Winona. It's like, who is that? Never seen her before. Has blonde hair, because it was blurred out, obviously. So it's like, new person? No, it's a same person from last season.
Right. Yeah.
It was.
Oh no. The speculation on trailers. I remember we were blessed enough to get to visit the set for a couple of days back when they were shooting season 2. And one of the nights, Emily took us out to dinner, myself and Bonnie, and also Bridget Leschewski from the TV Junkies. And, I had a great conversation. It was very special, having dinner with Emily, and also Jordy from 724, one of the production companies. And at the end of dinner, we're all getting ready to leave the restaurant. And this is, we're kind of getting near the front door, getting ready to go out. Emily's like, oh, well, if you guys want, I have the season 2 trailer on my phone. And this is like 4 months before it's going to air. And there's no, like, oh, you're kidding, of course. And I, to this day, I will never forget the 4 of us just huddled in a corner near the front of a restaurant, mind you, a nice restaurant, oohing and ahhing over the trailer and like, play it again, play it back, play it again. And that's the one that has the Waverly cheerleading tease in it.
Yeah.
So you can imagine when that popped on, we're like, who is that? What is this? Go back, play that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then all of the fans and the podcasters and the folks doing reaction vids, folks like yourself, I mean, literally breaking these things down frame by frame.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to see.
I like for myself, when I watch these shows, like I don't watch this show, and I'm not that analyzing type of person. That's not how I watch TV shows. My friends definitely are. So every time I talk with them and I just have a little bit of question, they'll like explain, like have a 10-minute explanation of like one shot. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what's happening now? And then my whole mind just like starts turning gears. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like, it's insane. And I'm a forgetful person, so I'll watch something and then like something from season 2 like kind of pops back up. I'm like, wait, did that happen? And they're like, yes, it happened. I was like, oh my bad, I'm sorry. Like, it's so interesting. And I love like genre sci-fi television, because everything like has a history to it in some way. There's always something like lore, or like it's like history, like Winona, like it's based off of Wyatt Earp and stuff like that. And so I love seeing the purgatory archaeologists on Twitter, and like like they go through like so many things. I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff's real. And like having like, and I learned about like the Hot background, like that last name, and like how that actually related. I was like, I thought they just made that up as a joke. Like, I thought that was just like a pun for a name. I was like, no, this is real. And it's so interesting, like Earper's figuring out, and like Emily's like, yeah, I've been planning this the whole entire time, waiting for everybody to think about this. I'm like, I don't understand like how she created this whole thing, and she still has more ideas. I'm like, Emily's mind is fascinating to me, and how much she can think of, and like the twists and turns, and like having like everything happen. Like, I could go into so many things, like hours and hours of talking with people about stuff in this show. It's insane. But now season 4 is over, and things are a little bit up in the air for season 5. We were supposed to be confirmed for season 5 as a plan before. IDW had the money for it. That was kind of the thing, is they had the money for 4 and 5. But now money isn't a problem. it's finding a new network streaming service or whatever for season 5.
Mhm.
And so for season 4, we had Fight for Winona, and now for season 5, we have Bring Winona Home.
Mhm.
And so, as I've noticed, you, Bonnie, and a few other Earpers on Twitter have really taken a lead on this new campaign for season 5. Does this feel like normal for you, talking about fighting for a new season after Fight for Winona? Is there pressure to be a leader? Do you feel like a leader in this campaign? What is that like?
Well, it's, for folks like myself who've been around since season 1 ended, we had a fight right after season 1. I mean, we had 4 to 5 weeks with nothing coming from the Sci-Fi Channel. This could have been a one and done show. I mean, as most folks know, even from the beginning, the TV ratings, the big numbers that folks look at for renewals that make the money on advertising, have never been strong for Winona. We've always been ratings challenged. So the mode of being in a fight for the show for myself, that's always might be at different levels, things like that. I mean, with the exception maybe of the season 4 renewal coming right when season 3 had just started. Otherwise, every other season, it was always keep the hashtag use up, keep talking up the show, keep looking at the numbers, keep worrying about what was going to happen. So maybe the mode of the fight or the angle we're taking has certainly adjusted over the years, but it's been in almost every single year situation. This year is obviously different since we have been officially canceled by the Sci-Fi Channel. So the producers are having to look for a new, like you said, network of streaming service. So it's always been a case. I mean, back in 2019, when IDW said they had financial issues and couldn't, finance the season, we had to take to social media and actually eventually to billboards in Times Square to try to get them to look at this and realize they couldn't just let it go away. They were going to have to deal with it. So that was a different situation than now, where we're not so much, the fans aren't quite as, I don't want to say involved, but aren't really as in control, if you will, or as focused on one specific thing like it was then, meaning IDW, company trying to make sure they got the finances straight. Now it's like, we're just talking the show up quite a bit because the producers are the ones who have to find a new home. Mm-hmm. So we're just here to support them by being very active. Yeah. So we've always been involved. I know this time around, the Bring Winona Home campaign, folks like Jill and Lindsay and Kayla have been spearheading, the vast majority of things happening there. And then other fans stepping up to buy mobile billboards and actually, in real life, a billboard in Hollywood to try to keep the visibility there. Just so that as the producers talk to networks, they go, oh yeah, that's right, I saw this happening. Yeah. Or our social media folks tell us our hashtag is blowing up, or our Twitter account, Facebook page, email response, forums, whatever it might be. Yeah. So everyone's involved to whatever degree they can. These fights, having been through several of them in the sense of support, these things can last for months. So it can take a toll on folks. So it is a case of, when you have the time, if you could be tweeting using the hashtags or reaching out to some of these networks, wonderful. But don't overdo it. Don't stress yourself out. Even Emily has mentioned on many occasions, be sure to enjoy this journey. We are at the point where we don't know if there will be a season 5 or more. We just stay positive, keep talking up the show. Lots of very creative Earpers out there with content to kind of give us things to do. Folks like yourself too, and other folks creating podcasts and other things. At this point, we need to lean a little more on the fandom for some of our Earp entertainment, and just rewatching and enjoying the show. So yeah, the fight has kind of always been there to one degree or another. Different focuses sometimes, but Earpers have always stood up and done the best they can. So that's been the wonderful thing, is knowing we're all in this together.
Oh yeah. I've noticed, because we kind of have a little bit more up in the air with, like you said, with season 4, we were focusing on IDW and the funding of it. But for this one, it's kind of, I wouldn't say all over the place, because I think it's quite organized in certain things, but we aren't focusing on one thing. We're kind of focusing on all networks, all streaming services. And like you said, Kayla and stuff, I noticed on Twitter, like there's always a schedule for the week of who we're focusing, kind of messaging and tweeting at, and like what distributors that day, or what streaming services are this day, and like ideas for tweets. And I think for like someone like me who is younger, and I'm not the social media person as a young person as people might think young people are. That's not me. I don't do that often. But having like that and having ideas, I'm like, okay, I can do this. And people are actually like emailing these things. I'm like, okay, whoa, that's crazy. And I need to get on that. And what makes it better is people are actually starting to see responses now from these places. Like Hulu has responded with, we're putting this into this area so people can vote on it. So Hulu, like in that area, the more votes we get in that, the better the chances that the higher ups are going to see it and review it and look at the show. And there's stuff from like Spectrum Originals have been like, we see you, we see this, and things are happening, and we're obviously aware. And I'm like, okay, that is like, every time that happens, everybody's like, okay, we have a little bit of hope more for something. Like they're seeing us, and so we have to keep doing this. Because
the visibility is what it is. You just want to, since we can't make them do anything.
Oh yeah.
Unlike a little bit with IDW, the idea was to make them do, straighten out their finances and take care of it. Now it's just exactly like you said, Bailey. It's get enough talking going on the social media so that these networks go, yeah, okay, Earpers, we see you're there. And like you said, in the case, as of the day we're recording this, Hulu and IMDb TV both said from some email responses to Earpers, okay, well, we have an area in our online community, our forums, where fans can vote up ideas. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to do it, but the Earpers are going to swarm in quickly.
Try our hardest
and put in comments and vote up things so that if nothing else, like you just said, the folks at the network will say, yeah, we do see these folks. And also one of the keys too, that's been there all along, and I think it's very important, certainly in this situation where we're looking for another network, is the Earpers do it with polite no chill. That has been our motto since day one, meaning we're not going to take this with an attitude or talk down on anyone, whoever it might be. It's just, we're here. We hope you see us. Thank you. And, best of luck. We want to be sure we're the fandom that a network wants to have involved with their community and talking of their show. So that sometimes has been a thing with other fans over the years or whatever, is negativity. The Earpers normally stay away from that. We try to focus on the positive.
Yeah. I think that's one of the best parts about this, is staying like, we're very positive, very polite about our approach to fighting for the show. And because we know we're just like, wherever this show goes, we will follow. And we do that a lot with the cast and stuff, like whatever new thing they're in, we're gonna go watch. Like Shamir has a new movie out, like a new Netflix movie. Have yet to watch it. I was planning on it. Things are busy now. But like everything goes, and I'm like, we find new stuff. So we know, like, we're just telling them, hey, wherever this show ends up going, we're going to be here. We may not be the biggest fandom ever, but like, we're enough to do something because we've done it before. And I think it's a good thing to see, like, people keep going, because I think it's really easy just to like, why hasn't it happened yet, like, kind of thing. Like, we're just like eager on the edge of our seats, but it's the patience of the game. We're like in the long run and stuff. And even like, Emily's talked about like a movie, like, and we're just like, I will take whatever I can get for more Earp content at this point. Like, seeing the cast again,
we all would.
in any form is what I'd get. But like the movie idea, I was like really intrigued about, though. I was like 10 years later, like, what are they up to, sort of thing. It's like these new like show reunions, like Friends reunion and like the Will and Grace reboot and stuff like that. I'm like, this is kind of the stuff I want to, like, I'm interested in, because like, it's been so long since a show, but like, I personally don't want to wait that long. I'm like, I don't want to wait 10 years before a show can come back, but I'd be grateful if it did in any form.
Yeah. And it's also tough, I know, definitely for newer fans, especially, I who get a little frustrated because it's been a little while since the announcement and we haven't had any, quote, news of possibilities. And I oftentimes get replies on Twitter and messages, well, how are we doing? Is it closer? Is it going to happen? Does it look good? Does it look bad? And unfortunately, the reality in this case is we're probably not going to hear anything until we hear one of two things: either a big PR announcement that the show's been picked up somewhere, we'll all rejoice, or we'll hear from the producers who say we've exhausted all options and contracts have expired and we have to let it go. I mean, unfortunately, there isn't like a status check I mean, back in 2019 with the fight for Winona, it was a little over 4 months from the time that we became officially aware of what was going on until we got the announcement that yes, season 4 was coming back. During that time, we had nothing other than a couple of polite tweets from IDW that basically said a little what you mentioned earlier from like what Hulu's and others have said, which is, we see you. Well, see us doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
All they did was acknowledge they saw us. So even then, that was over 4 months with no status updates. So I'm afraid it's probably going to be the same kind of deal here, that we won't get a status check. We won't know what is going to happen until we get something official, very good or very bad. So that's why we tell folks, enjoy the journey. I mean, if you enjoy posting these things on social media or reaching out by email, as some folks have done, or contributing if you have the means to some of these billboard things, do it for the enjoyment of the journey, much like what IRPA has been like, because we can't control where it's going to go.
Yeah. And the amount of like, it's really crazy to think about the amount of people that have joined this fandom just through quarantine. Like,
yes.
And like, I've met a few people, I've had people on the podcast that like just watched the show. One of them, Paige, started in January. So like that's after 4B even, like 4A even, and she like only watched 4B live. I'm like, that's crazy to think how many people are here and they're like just as involved and they've put their heart out, and now they're in this waiting game that they haven't been in before.
Yeah, so that's what it's tough. There's so many people, it's new.
Yeah.
And that's where I say it's tough, and that's where I do try to, when I can, reply and see some folks. Only having been through this for now 5+ years, kind of gotten a little used to the fact that yes, it's life on the edge. We don't know what's going to happen for most of our time. It's kind of been our, I don't want to say curse, but as Emily has said, the universe looks down on Wynonna Earp, and sometimes we get some amazingly good things to happen, and sometimes some not so good things. But it is wonderful to see all the new faces and the folks who have become active on social media, or folks who've reached out to us with the podcast, just like you said, Bailey, that just found it just weeks ago or a few months ago, or like you, even just around a certain start of a season. And that's actually one of the biggest joys, actually, that I don't want to say shocked me, but definitely surprised me with our podcast. Because again, since we were back around the beginning of the show, now up over 200 episodes, it has been wonderful to see so many Earpers who mentioned, I came in kind of late, so I went back to the beginning of your podcast and I listened from the start. And I was able to feel like I was there when you were excited about a renewal, or you were disappointed because we didn't hear anything from the network. So I got to ride that roller coaster a little bit with everybody. And that was such a wonderful thing. It's a great thing about podcasts. They're always there. But in this case of the up and down nature with this show, is at least folks got a chance to feel like they were there. If you've got the excitement or whatever. So that's been a great joy to be able to give folks that.
It's very interesting. I've done a complete listen all the way back to the beginning of Tales of Black Badge. I was like, I had this stint where it was like after 4A ended, and I was like, I should really listen to this. I see it on Twitter. I go, and then I just like binged like all of it, just like driving from practice, like to and from. I just listened to it. Like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. I'm like reliving watching all of these episodes again.
Yeah, and that's what's wonderful. And that's why when folks, I don't want to be negative, but if we don't have any new Earp for a long period of time, or for whatever it might be, we still have 49 amazing episodes of Earp. And there are other podcasts now out there covering the show, and folks who've done reactions and recaps and all these online discussions, like you said, friends groups who get together. I mean, there's lots of ways for us to keep the fire going and to keep having fun with it. Sometimes we just have to do it in more of a let's go back and re-examine some of the things that occurred to really make it an even richer experience each time.
Yeah, it's one of the joys is like I can always think about like if I need more Winona, I'm just gonna go rewatch the show. Like no matter like if we get more or not, like I can always have this show. It'll be there. In some way. I'm like, if I need something, if I need to pick me up or whatever, even though the emotion in the show is crazy, and I like if it just makes me happy, even if it's sad for some reason, I don't know why, but I can always just lean on this show to give me some form of comfort, even if season 5 is up in the air. Like that's always going to be there for myself, and I know a lot of other Earpers relate in that way.
Yeah. If you can go all in and just live in the moment of watching these eps, it's so special. And anytime I'm rewatching, if I go back, and you can, after every episode, like you said, check out Bridget did wonderful postmortems with Emily after each episode. You get a little deeper and you learn a little more. So when you watch the next episode, you see something you haven't seen before. As we know, the dialogue is so sharp. It can be third, fourth, fifth watch before you catch a great line you didn't hear up until then. And how many shows have that much rewatch value? You know, you watch, there's a lot of things I watch and enjoy, but I know I'm never going to go back and rewatch it. It's just, it was what it was in the moment. This show's not that case. We get so much reward by going back and doing that.
Yeah. And we're going to do a bit of a transition with the show being up in the air, and Wynona's always kind of been that show where it's like after every season, it's kind of questionable if whether it's not going to return. Is very much like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend, an IRPA friend of mine, watched the show, and she's like, "You guys have to watch this because Emily and the cast have always referenced Buffy as an inspiration for this show."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I don't know, whatever." And I wasn't even born when it ended, so I was like, I don't even know what the show is. And so I just started watching this show like a few weeks ago. And I'm like, this makes so much sense now.
Doesn't
I
it?
understand what's happening. And
it is such a reward to see folks like you able to do that now, because yes, there is so many parallels, both story, characters, journeys, and relatability to the characters, the humor. I mean, there is so much there. I mean, I got early vibes, especially episode 104, as I've said many times, the Blade, the way the team worked together in Wynonna Earp there with the little seance, with the dialogue, especially between the Earp sisters and all. I got major Buffy vibes there and was seeing it more as I got into it. And then it was at one of the San Diego Comic-Con panels where Emily talked. And really, as you pointed out, Billy said, no, Buffy was a big inspiration for where we went, some ideas and so forth. So that's what's made that so much fun with doing the Buffy Earpers podcast that I started, was a chance to, because I'm always rewatching Buffy, in the sense that I'm one of those completists. I start at the beginning, go to the end, and then wait a little bit and then start all over again. So I'm always watching. So starting one for specifically the Buffy Earpers podcasts, it's just been another joy, because I can now see Buffy in a slightly different light with some parallels, some contrasts, some other things. But yeah, it's wonderful when I hear folks obviously getting into Wynonna Earp, but obviously when they say, "Oh, I'm gonna finally give Buffy a try." And as you said, you know, it started quite a while ago. I mean, it first started airing in the 90s. The production values are pretty low in those early seasons. A little rough around the edges, kind of getting its feet under itself. But once it does, man, whoa, what a ride that is.
Yeah, it's, and I've obviously, I had this since I listened to Tales Back Then. I've noticed on there's the Buffy Earp podcast, and so it's like that was one of the things, like, this is on here, and I'm a completist also. I'm gonna listen to every episode. I'm not gonna, I mean, like, I may skip around on episodes, but I'm eventually gonna listen to all of them. And then my friend's like really talking up Buffy, and like, so I was like, okay, well, I have 2 reasons I have to watch the show now, so I'm gonna start watching it. And so I started watching it, and I'm listening to these podcasts kind of as I'm going through, and I'm don't care about spoilers. I kind of like having the knowledge and like waiting to see like when that's going to happen and how it ends up happening. So listening to the end of your podcast when you're like, okay, this is where we're going to get into the spoiler section of it.
Oh no, like, Bailey, now you know too much.
I don't listen. And then I eventually like got so busy where I was just watching the show and I got so ahead. Like, I'm in season 5, and I think I'm on like somewhere season 2 of the Buffy Earpers podcast, where I'm enough ahead where you say spoilers, I'm like, I actually just watched that episode.
There you go. Well, if you're in season 5, whereabouts are you? Halfway, 3/4, 1/4?
Season 5, I'm halfway through. I just finished episode 11, season 5.
Okay, no spoilers here, folks, but okay. Yeah, you're gonna have to keep me posted as you go through. I can't say anything else. That is,
it's crazy. Things have happened, and I'm like texting my friend, like, what is happening? Oh my gosh, wait a second. And like, there's so many things, and like the characters, and then I'm also watching Angel at the same time. Because like
man,
they go
you were
together.
doubling up. Good way. Yes. Yeah.
I asked my
crossover
friend, like,
episodes there and everything.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna do stuff, and I love like genre and sci-fi television, and the lore, especially in Angel, with going back into his history and everything. That's the type of stuff I love to see in TV shows. Like, that's That's where I'm at. And so like the flashbacks in Winona, I was like, yes, history. And I'm like, I need more.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's some great stuff there. We'll have to at some point see if we can get you on the guest host on Buffy Earpers or something.
I would
Especially where you're making the journey there. We'll have to keep that in mind because that's part of the fun. I mean, that's why I love doing like those rewatches for Buffy, or getting a chance at a convention like Dragon Con that I do every year, where it's a fan-based convention. We talk about shows like Buffy, come up with new ways to look at the show. I just love when we can look at these things, get someone new into it, find a new perspective we never thought of before. Again, it makes these things just so much richer when you get so much more out of them.
And I like my friend, like everybody talks about like season 1 of Buffy is a little bit hard to get through.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's only 12 episodes, so I knew like if it was bad, it wasn't gonna last that long. But as I said, I'm not like a super analytical person. I'm not like some big TV critic. I'm young and I just watch TV for the enjoyment. So I sat there and I was like, okay, you guys said it was bad. I actually enjoyed this.
Well, good then.
I'm not upset
then you're
with like
really in for a treat.
Yeah, and then it just got so much better, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like, there's so many things. I'm like, and like people like new characters being added like almost every season. I'm like, this is great. Like the Scooby Gang is growing, and I love it. And I love that they reference themselves at the Scooby Gang, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar goes on to play Daphne in Scooby Doo.
Yeah,
it's like,
see, you never know what's going to happen.
it throws me off, and I'm like, I enjoy every minute, and I just sit there and I watch it, and then I go back and forth between that and Angel because my friend gave me a list of like how to watch the episodes.
Okay, together. So you have the crossovers, you know when to
and so I know like what order everything's in, and so I just like right now with season 5 and season 2 of Angel, it's kind of just a back and forth game. So I watch one episode Buffy, one episode Angel, and I just go back and forth, and then I get to crossovers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't imagine like watching it not together because like there'd be things where I'd be thrown off. I'm like, wait, something happened over here and I don't know about it. And like you think,
I mean, like, they did a pretty good job. So you can get away without both. But again, it's richer with both because that's I mean, they used to have them airing one after the other on the same night, so it just made sense to watch them that way. So that's good. That's good. That's the perfect way to do it because there's some very rich storytelling and character development in Angel and some of the Buffy characters that eventually moved to Angel. You've got I don't want to say too much.
I've accidentally spoiled stuff for myself.
Okay.
Because I was looking up stuff for the actors because like I recognized these actors before, and like my friend's like, yeah, a lot of people like started on Buffy, like their acting career like started around then. Like Wentworth Miller I saw, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember him because like I watched the Arrowverse shows, and those crossovers are big, but that's like only a few episodes like for each show, and like people like get confused with that. I'm like, I get so much confused if I didn't watch both of these at the same time because they like make references, like even if it's not an episode crossover, they'll like talk references about what's happening in each show. And I'm like, it's crazy, and I'm enjoying every minute of it, especially in quarantine. I'm not doing that much, so I have a lot of time to watch stuff.
Hey, then there you go. You got a perfect way to fill time.
It makes everything is starting to make sense with Buffy and Winona now. And if anybody hasn't watched Buffy, it's on Hulu. So is Angel. That's how I'm watching it. It's on Hulu. Great watch. It's normal TV, 22 episodes, which is like normal TV shows I watch. So that wasn't like, it's not like long to me because I understand like the 22 episode type of shows. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is great. It's like, I love finding new shows and having like a long show to watch because it's been so long since like new shows have come out and stuff has gone because of the pushback with the pandemic, where I like started watching, like waiting for my TV shows to come back on. I'm watching this. I'm like, this is fulfilling everything I wanted. Like, I think I like this more than some of the other shows that I used to really like.
There you go. And that's the great thing when you find a show like Winona and you realize you now have a style and type that you can enjoy, and reaching out to other friends saying, okay, I'm not saying it has to be as good as this one, but what other shows kind of are going to hit me emotionally in the same way or give me the same enjoyment too. Let me throw out another name. I don't know. Have you watched Lost Girl?
Lost Girl? No. I am trying to figure out where I can watch it.
Okay, it's on right now. It's available for free on CW Seed
CWC. Okay, I can do that.
or the CW website,
Yes.
I believe. And I'm just, Emily
That's
Emily
Emily
was a
worked on that
showrunner.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was a showrunner there. That's where I discovered her, became aware of her. And Lost Girl, for at least for me, like Buffy and like Winona, those are my top tier shows. There's a lot of similar things going to happen in Lost Girl that you see in Buffy and in Winona. So if you like those, Bailey, I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to enjoy Lost Girl.
That's been on my list because like I said, like I like to follow the cast and what they do. So I've gone back and watched like some of their older stuff, or like I actually ended up watching Letterkenny because Melanie was on Letterkenny.
Yeah.
And that's just like a comfort comedy show.
Yep.
For me. Like I can always laugh at Letterkenny. And so I like to follow what they do and see like how they've grown and what's changed and like what have they played in different like characters. So it's like it's interesting to see like the range that these actors have. And so Lost Girl has been like in the back of my head on my list at some point. Yep. And I'm like, once this will be like my summer show.
Okay.
Like
maybe after you get through Buffy or something, but definitely
like I get through
highly
Buffy,
recommend it.
and then like I'm a Star Wars fan, so Bad Batch is coming out.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I have to rewatch Clone Wars again, and then I have to watch Bad Batch, and then like
it's tough having to rewatch all this great entertainment, isn't it?
Yes. I'm like it's like such a struggle. I'm like, oh my god, my favorite TV show, I have to watch it again. Ugh.
Oh yeah, tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's all part of the fun though. I don't know how many times I've rewatched like shows,
and that's what's
like,
great. I mean, the pandemic is a horrible thing in the world, but at least for many of us, it's at a time when we have access to a lot of entertainment.
Yeah.
If you're going to be stuck at home, at least it wasn't back in the 70s or 80s when we had 4 channels and didn't have access to a lot of things. So, I mean, in that sense, at least it's giving you something to be able to do.
Yeah.
And many others. I mean, as you said, because there's so many Earpers who discovered the show during the pandemic too. So it's good. But yeah, I'm glad Lost Girl's on your list. I think based on what you told me that you like, I think there's a real good chance.
Yeah, and like I'm pretty sure like Kat Burrell was on Lost Girl in an episode.
Yes.
I'm like, this is everything I need. Like
Tim is in there as well.
Tim's in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's insane. Like how many yes, Canada only has 10 actors, we know. And so like you see them in so many things and things cross over. Like the actress that played Shay from season 2, she's in Letterkenny.
Okay. Yep.
And I was like, is that Shay? Like, oh my gosh, she looks completely different because her hair is different. Right. And it's like weird because it was like long ago, but not that long ago. It's like, wait a second. Like lots of things cross over, and you see certain episodes. Like Working Moms is another show that I like to watch just because Danny's in it, Kat's in it, and stuff like that. And so I just like finding things, and like apparently Canadian TV shows are really good.
Yes.
And I didn't know that because I'm so young and I'm finding all these things. I'm like, wait, this is quality television over here. I should start watching things.
Yes. I hope you also have Orphan Black on your list somewhere.
Oh my gosh, I think no. The thing is I heard about the show because my sister, I think, watched it for a little bit. And so it's in my head. And then I'm seeing so many things. I'm like, okay, this is like my type of TV. I'm gonna have to watch this at some point too. Yep. Like there's so many things where I'm like, I've heard of this, but I didn't know it was like this. I thought it was like something else. I'm like, no, this is actually my genre that I prefer. Yep. And it's very interesting I find new shows all the time. I'm like, this is on my list. I'm like, I have a lineup of TV. And then my mom's like, you should watch this show. I'm like, mother, you do not understand how many shows that I have planned to watch. Like I will watch Schitt's Creek. Just give me some time.
Too many good choices.
It's insane. And one of those new shows that I ended up watching, and this was because I watch Emily from Free Bicycle Tours on YouTube. She does a lot of reaction stuff. That's how I actually found Winona, is because she was doing it because I was watching her Supergirl and Legends reactions. Yep. And so she was doing Winona, so I started watching those. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting show. Has some queer characters. I'm queer, so I'm gonna watch it. And then she was watching Warrior Nun, new show out on Netflix. It came out pretty recently. So I was like, I'm going to watch this because I like the historical kind of aspect and stuff. And now it turns out that you are running new podcasts Into the Halo for Warrior Nun with some
Correct.
few others.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very excited. Did you just watch Warrior Nun because it came out and it looked interested, or did you find it another way?
Well, one of the podcasts that I do and have done for about 13 years is Tuning into Sci-Fi TV. We're up to about episode 560 something. We've been doing it for a long time, my friends Brent and Wendy and I, because we're all big fans of genre shows. So we used to chat a little bit about them anyway and kind of said, well, why don't we do a podcast on it? So we're covering whatever genre shows are coming, news about them, cancellations, renewals, things like that. So we have a pretty good ear for shows that are coming to the genre. So Warrior Nun was something I saw a trailer of when Netflix put it out. Definitely looked like it was up my alley. Strong female characters, got little sass in there with some of them, some fun stuff, and some epic story bits with genre. So it was one I was aware of, and I definitely, once I watched it when it became available in last July, I greatly enjoyed it. I really did. I've rewatched it a couple of times.
It was very good.
Yeah, and one of the podcasts I listen to, Forever Fangirls, with Kimberly and Sheila, they cover many different shows and topics. They did an episode on Warrior Nun, and I could tell they were big fans. So I just reached out and said, hey, would you want to do a Warrior Nun podcast? Might be a fun way just to talk about some of the deep topics that are there. So yeah, we're just starting one up now. Just recorded our introduction episode actually this week, which should be out soon. So the coming months, we'll be covering the episodes and some of the themes in the show. Looking forward to season 2 whenever we get that.
Yeah, I was very interested. I'm not a religious person, but I'm interested in religions. I love the history of it, and like the Catholic Church goes very far back in history, and so I like learning about that stuff. So it was that, and then it was plus like sci-fi stuff, and I was like, these like this piques my just like academic interest, and then like my TV interest, like worlds collide, and I sat through it, and I just binged the show. Like I could binge it in a day if I really wanted to, because I was like, there's a few episodes, as most shows are now condensing episodes in a season to shorter seasons, which I kind of prefer, because you don't have those filler episodes that are sometimes kind of hard to get into. It's kind of just pure story, pure character arc, and it's just full. And and that's where a lot of the analyzing comes from, is those shorter shows. You get kind of that stuff because you don't have to like skip over things. You can just go full deep into it, and it's very much enjoyable. And like that, it's like there's so many good shows, and like a lot of sci-fi shows and things like that are starting to have these female leads, like and it's starting to grow, and I think it's good. And having that, and in certain shows, in my favorite shows, because that's just, I want to watch stuff that represents me, obviously, too, having queer representation in those as well, even if the queer representation isn't the lead, it's in the supporting characters, who for Wynonna, like I don't even consider them supporting characters. Like this is like, it's Wynonna Earp, but like it's like it's an ensemble, through and through. And I think it's good, because like a lot of people in the Earp fandom didn't get that growing up. Like you just didn't see it. And even for me, in like main television, because obviously I watched kids shows and those were a little bit different, but I would see shows just on like regular TV, and I didn't even see it then. And now, as I've gone through my teen years and kind of found myself, I've found these shows with female leads, and it's very much influenced me, obviously, because I'm at an influential age in my life, and going through things, going to adulthood, I'm seeing these things, and I'm like, this is what everybody needs. And like the fact that it hasn't happened is like crazy to me. I'm like, this is great TV. People need to get on this. What are you doing? Female leads are like some of the best TV shows right now, in my opinion. I don't watch like Grey's Anatomy, CBS, stuff like that. Like that's not where my stuff lies. And I know there's male leads, and I know a lot of people endorse those shows, but I'm like, genre television is a very niche place. And for people who need that sort of representation in those areas, I think should just try it out, see what happens. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, that's okay. But this is there if you need it.
Well, it's wonderful to be a TV fan now, I mean, we're in an explosion period with like 500 scripted TV shows available across all these platforms. So it's great to get content that speaks to you, that you can identify with, has some representation. You don't have to be spoon fed just the 5 or 6 shows that are available, in the linear networks like there used to be. So it's wonderful to see creators and people be able to bring these different stories to light. I mean, some of them don't last, some of them, flame out quickly or whatever, but just to get a chance to look around and find something that says, yeah, that's me. That's who I want to see. It's just wonderful to see that now, so much more than it ever used to be.
Yeah. And people like, I've noticed like, Winona piqued my interest because of Way Hot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I originally started. And that's for a lot of people. And then I actually watched the show. I'm like, okay, this isn't just them. This is so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I have such an appreciation not for the show, but for the actors and how well they act. Because as growing up young, I watched kids shows, acting not so great, obviously, because it's kids. And I'm like, this is insane. Like I talk about my friends about this all the time, is like Melanie Scrofano could just literally act through her eyes. She does not have to say a word.
There you go. And you can turn off the sound.
I'm like, I don't even have to like hear what she's saying to know what emotion she's invoking. It's insane. And then in 411, when Winona goes blind and she has those colored contacts in, I'm like, I can't even see her eyes anymore. I can just tell through her eyebrows now. I'm like, what kind of actor can do that? And like
tone of voice, just the pace of speech and all these other things, the physicality. She's amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
It's insane. And so I'm like learning what TV should be through this show. I'm like, everybody needs to get on this level of acting here. This is too good to miss out on.
That's the only thing that sometimes comes up in conversations, and it always has for years and years, but especially now with Wynonna Earp, is folks will find it and they're going so deep, and then we're at a point where we don't have any new content, and they're like, well, what else is like Wynonna Earp? And part of that answer is nothing. Nothing can be on that level, but there are other things that can, can give you something to enjoy. But sometimes you just have to realize perfect combination of showrunner, writers, actors, the behind the scenes team, the creative people just create something.
Yeah.
And it's, it's also top to bottom good people. We've been very blessed, Bonnie and I, to have met many of the crew and done interviews with cast and production people, and just top to bottom nice human beings.
Yeah.
Which is just great to see. I mean, that's what we all hope for. So it's definitely been a gold mine that way.
And we talk about this, but Emily, most people have heard this, but Emily has this policy of like the type of people that she's going to put in her show. It's like, if you're not a good person, you're not going to be in the show. Like, no matter the acting skill or whatever. Obviously, we want to have a good actor on the show. Like, that's a part of it. But she's going to put the people who are the best type of people, like the people we already have in a cast. And I think that's something so special about it, because you've had shows and you've had, actors and stuff who like don't necessarily care about the fandom and like the people who actually watch it. That's happened before. But with this show, like, we care about them, they care about us, and the sort of mutual respect and love that we have for each other makes it all the better. Like, not only do I have this good show, but like the cast and the crew and the showrunner are all amazing people also, that like this whole fandom will be here whether the show is there or not.
Exactly. And that's that's a special thing.
Special.
Yeah, it really is. You can't make that happen. That happens for that reason that you pointed out with. And that's been the beauty too of seeing these actors and Emily at some of the different Earp conventions, in downtime between things, and just how committed they are to doing things the right way and all. It's, you relish it in the sense that it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, I've been very blessed to have met many actors, done interviews, and there are many great people from my limited encounters with them, but none of them as a group or anywhere near with the Earp crew is. It's just appreciate it. You can't always replicate it, but you appreciate the hell out of
it. Yeah, it's so good. I couldn't ask for anything better, especially in such a early part of my life. Or like, I'm gonna have other things that I'm excited about, but to have this now is something that like it's people like get nostalgic about things in their childhood where like this will be the thing that when I'm like 60 I'll be like, I remember this show and the friends that I made through this show is like gonna be forever. Like I will tell my children, my grandchildren about this whole time. Like it's something that it holds a very special place in my heart, and I think it will forever. And that's the best part about it.
Yeah, it is. And that's sometimes where you just have to go back to that when, you know, we've got the unknown nature of the future. Just go back in your heart to what we got and the amazing journey, you, collective you, Bailey, anyone listening to my voice, just whatever part you've been able to go on a journey, just never lose that. Remember that, you know, celebrate it.
It's a special thing.
Very special.
All right. Well, that is our time today. Kevin, I am extremely grateful that you were able to come on today. Such a pleasure to talk.
No, I love talking IRPA. I love talking shows, Bailey. Someone like you, I've heard your passion and the shows you do. That's a wonderful thing. It really is. So I'm glad. It's fun to do this with people who care about things like you do.
Yeah, it's very special. Do you want to shout yourself out, tag your Twitters and whatnot?
Sure. If folks aren't aware, as you've mentioned very graciously, our podcast that Bonnie and I do is Tales of the Black Badge. You can find it on any of the podcasting platforms, or at WynonnaEarpPodcast.com to look us up. And on social media, I run the Wynonna Earp Pod Twitter account, and Bonnie runs the Wynonna Earp Fans one. So if you're looking for info there. And again, if you're looking for other content covering genre shows, Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV is the name of that podcast I do with Wendy and Brent, where we cover all the genre shows and news. And that new podcast for Warrior Nun, if you're interested, folks, is called Into the Halo. Our first episode will be out any day, and you can find us at warriornunpodcast.com.
Very new stuff. I always like listening to you and Bonnie and everybody talk about shows. I'm like, this is amazing. For everybody else, remember, we are continuing our Bring Winona Home campaign, always using hashtags Wynonna Earp and Bring Winona Home. Keep tweeting, keep talking about the show. We will get something someday. And with that being said,
Stay positive.
Polite, no chill, everybody. Motto of our generation lifetime. All right, well, with that being said, once again, thank you, Kevin, and I'll catch everybody next time.